You're listening to the AI Moment with me, Jonathan Wexstaff.
And me, Danny Denhard.
And Dan, what are we going to talk about today?
Today we're going to dive into the extended world of AI. Many people consider it as just the web. And what I thought about when we'll come up with topics, we've never really dived into the extended world of AI. So the way that when I talk around it is very often people use Whoop, wristbands and wearables, and that's almost all AI driven and insights. There's self-driving cars that people will get into, wearables and glasses and toys. So I think it's something we should probably dive into a little bit and talk through the different implications and uses of them and how they're going to impact us in the coming months.
Sure. So do you want to start with, say, Waymo? Let's talk about Waymo and self-driving cars. What's your view on those, Dan?
It's really important that people understand that Waymos are essentially AI and they're self-driving. So you don't have a driver. They're coming to London in 2026. They've been across the Western states in America. And we were talking just before and we were saying how many people struggle to want to book one. They struggle for the first 10 minutes and then then it's like normal. So I think what a lot of people haven't necessarily understood is it's a small language model powering it in the background. So it's actually on device. It's all AI on that device that powers it and understands through all the different antennas and cameras on there. But I just think it's really interesting that it's not something we've necessarily touched on, and it's going to impact so many people. What's your thoughts on Waymo and autonomous cars, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think like you, I've not taken a Waymo myself. I know a number of people who have. Pretty well universally, the feedback was it's really weird for 2 or 3 minutes. Then it's absolutely great. You get used to the idea and it's absolutely great. I think there's a couple of things that drop out. I mean, first of all, as you say, you mentioned small language model. I think it's a really good vanguard example of small language model doing something quite stressful. And so there's a lesson, or there's a signpost there for business leaders that small language models designed properly can actually deliver an awful lot of performance. So the point being that they're self-contained, right? So you've got a device out of your car. It can obviously talk to the internet, but it can't rely on that. So that what's in the car, what's in the AI in the car has to be able to handle driving, which is a non-trivial task, right? So there's an implication down the track about, okay, so we can build some really quite tight small language model AI tools that will do some quite complex things. And there's, that depends on the field you're in, what those complex things might be. So that's good. And then I think also, people have been kicking around the idea of self-driving cars now for a good 10 or 15 years, haven't they? And it seemed to accelerate during the early part of the last decade. Then mid-decade, it stopped and we'd had some problems and people weren't trusting it, a few crashes. It's now moved on forward again and Waymo has come into existence. I think there's also some societal pieces, though, which are around, let's assume we move to a point of self-driving cars and everybody's got one. There are implications there about a driving license. So theoretically, if every car is self-driving, you could put your 8-year-old in a car. You could program the car to grandma's house and it could take your 8-year-old to go and see grandma without you being. Theoretically, I'm not suggesting you should do that. There's implications there about driving license and learning to drive. There's implications about car ownership. Why would you own a car when you could just rent a car by the minute? A self-driving, you call it when you need it and it goes away when you don't. There's implications about things like the police forces collect a lot of money from speeding fines right now. But if every car's self-driving and never ever speed, that revenue goes away. Well, they're going to need that revenue from somewhere. So what's going to happen? So there's all sorts of spin-off questions around self-driving cars, I think, that are interesting to contemplate. What do you think? Would you put an 8-year-old in the car and send them to grandma? What do you think, Dan?
I'd like to get in one first to have the confidence. I know many people that do it in the States. I know there's some VCs that openly talk around putting their kids to school in the autonomous car because it helps them and they feel safe. So I think the second order will be the insurance factor and might end up being more of the drop-off American style schooling of sort of self-driving and the second and third orders of that. But I think if it was going to help and it's safer and more efficient, then I can't see a problem with many people giving their kids the opportunity to joyride safely.
can choose their own music. They can choose whatever they're watching on TV, and without mom and dad there to tell them they can't. I can imagine an average 8-year-old would really want to do that. Whether they should or not is a different thing. Do you want to talk about wearables? Do you want to talk about wearables?
Yeah, this is an area I think we've all had some experience with. So whether that's a Whoop band or whether that's Apple Watch, we're all moving closer and closer into our data being the power source. The oil for a lot of this, the AI movement. It helps us become more active and generally. So I think that's something that a lot of people don't consider when they're thinking of AI, is the positive implications that wearables have had. The one area which I think we're moving into is more of something on your hands. The rings is something I've heard people talk around. AirPods or earrings being another source of wearables and having AI completely built into it. I know there's tech in China and Korea where they're talking around having pendants or something that's around your neck that's closer to your vital organs, which can detect things really quickly. So I think these are all areas which are going to be really important, and things that probably next year we're going to see a big rush of product come out, and it will be powered by AI. So it's whether you're comfortable or you've really thought through the implications of having that and having a data source to your whole life, or how it's powered your life. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the fundamental thing we've all been doing for about 25 years now is we've been balancing privacy with utility. So from the get-go, from the first smartphone you had and everything you've done with it, you give up information about yourself, so your privacy is less, in order to gain utility. If you're using location finding or all the other things you're doing on a phone, you're telling the world about yourself. And we know there are people out there who are collecting that data and looking to use it to influence where you vote, or what it can sell to you and all that stuff. So that's been the big macro story. Now we're on to another level here. I think most of the wearables are around well-being, around fitness, health. There's some very impressive technology. I mean, I was talking to somebody recently who'd got an app on his Apple Watch, and the thing sort of said to him on Friday morning, "You're about to get flu," and he felt fine. And by 4 o'clock, he was going down with it. So it had monitored certain vital signs and picked up that he was on the way downhill. So there's some very clever technology, and I think we could all do with in an increasingly stressed world, we could all do with tools that help us get better sleep, right fitness levels, right diet. I don't think we're far from having something on you. They may even exist. I'm not aware. There might be something on your Apple Watch where, it geolocates and picks up the fact you're walking into Marks and Spencer's at lunchtime, and it goes, you know what? You need to buy a tuna sandwich and some mineral water and an orange right now, because I've just examined your blood, and these are the things that you need to do right now for your well-being. So I think we're going to get to all that. So it's really a question of how happy is any individual with the amount of privacy they retain versus the utility they get from all these tools. And I actually think in some respects it's a losing battle. We're actually giving up far more of our information than we think we are. And so it's a losing battle in a way. Well, the utility is potentially fantastic.
Yeah, I think it was Tyler Cohen who said we're constantly in a battle. Humans are constantly in a battle for convenience. So it's either save me time or something else. So, like you said, we are the product for almost all of these tools and anything connected to us. So whether it comes to robots or the Meta or Snap glasses that we'll be wearing, the spectacles, and the implications of they've been hacked already, as in people have grey hacked them. So if you walk in front of them, they know who you are, connected on your facial features. So I think that might be a step too far for a lot of people, but I've seen people with Meta glasses and people just so unaware of them. Like you said, I think we're all going to be accepting that we're going to be the product for everything, as long as it gives us
that's an interesting one.
Forward.
The glasses is an interesting one. I think there is a real, if you're at the point where just about everyone you meet is recording you, I think that might change some societal behaviors. I think we all might be a bit less relaxed than we currently are. I don't know. I just think people get uneasy. I think people are comfortable with the idea that you will wear technology that helps you find where you are, helps you with your health data, helps you, whatever. I think the moment that you're wearing technology that impacts them directly, so for instance, that without knowing it, they're being recorded at any given time. And as you say, they're being analyzed, maybe there's face reco going on. yeah, I think people get a bit less comfy with that somebody else is using this technology against me, if you like. So there's an interesting societal step there as well, I think, to look at.
Yeah, for me against we is something that I often will say is how people are using technology and how it's going to be implemented. If we can make sure and help listeners just really think about that, and if they decide to implement that sort of level of tooling in their business, then there's both sides for us to consider and understand the second and third order of that, and being able to critically think, is it definitely going to help everyone as opposed to hinder quite a few people in what it could uncover or surface.
You've been saying for a long time 2026 is a crucial year. You've been saying for a long time that 2026 is when ROI really happens for businesses in AI. I agree with that. I also think 2026 is a year when this stuff explodes, and we have to work out as a population how we feel about that, what we're going to do about that. How do we get the best out of the utility without necessarily completely crippling the way we operate as a society, because everyone's paranoid about the fact that everyone's glasses are taking pictures of them all the time. So I haven't got the answer to that one, Dan, but I think it's a really interesting thing to discuss and to look at and to keep an eye on as we go forward.
Definitely. Thanks a lot for that one, Jonathan. I'm looking forward to diving into that again in the near future and helping people understand that there's probably so many for and so many against this, but there's so much opportunity that companies who struggle with data now could really excel in the future.
Good to see you, my friend, and I will see you next time.
See you next time. Thanks for listening today, everyone. If you liked what you heard, please give us a rating and review in any of the podcast players. We have a supporting newsletter, which is aimoment.co.uk, that comes out on Mondays and Fridays with every pod, and we dive a little bit deeper. So please subscribe there. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.